Sustainability Stories, a balancing act of people, planet, and profit. I'm your host, Radhika Arapalli. My aim for the podcast is to bring you inspiring stories into sustainability and discover how every job title and each one of us can do more to prioritize and support the balance. And for today's story, we will be speaking to one of the solution providers from downstream recycling, closer to closing the loop. That's composting of food waste, reduction to landfill gases. Composting, as we know, is not new. It's been around from the year 1905. The beauty is when you apply technological innovation to enhance the process for a circular planet. That's when science meets tradition and the magic happens. So today I'm excited to welcome my guest, William Ward, Regional Director for Middle East and Africa from Green Eco Technologies. Green Eco Technologies provide on-site solutions for reducing food waste disposal, be it catering institution or a restaurant or hospitality. They now operate in 7 countries and multiple projects. One of the key products I have seen in person from Green Eco Technologies is the Waste Master. I've seen the Waste Master at Ras Al Khaimah in United Arab Emirates, where I am from, at the fruit and veg market. This machine can convert 500 kilograms of food waste loaded into the system into 100 kilograms of compost-like residual material, which can be used for clean fuel power. They truly believe in hashtag Don't Waste Your Waste. And the Waste Master system will also be at the Australian Pavilion at the Dubai Expo 2021. The Waste Master system will recycle all of the pavilion's kitchen and table waste for the duration of the expo. It'll aim to do 4 things. 1, convert organic waste into a reusable resource on site. 2, all of this without using any additives or water. I think that's quite key, just knowing that water is scarcity, and if there is technology which doesn't need water, yet produces a reusable resource, that's brilliant. So number 3, it's reducing its weight by up to 80%. And 4, all of this completely odor-free. To top it, they've recently won the Bronze Award at the Gulf Sustainability and CSR Awards. So let's give it up for William Ward, who is with us today. William is from the UK and has been keen sustainability hero who has dedicated 10 plus years to the field. And it's great to hear his story and the journey for Green Eco Technologies. I'm excited to have you on the show. And the floor is yours now. Thanks, William.
Thank you very much. So I say a brief introduction. That was fantastic. I think I might use that myself. So thanks for that warm introduction. I was introduced to Green Eco Technologies, I guess, just over 2 years ago now. An Australian-based company with the founder, Jason Hohen, and his father having this wonderful idea of repurposing food and organic waste. And originally Jason came with his family to the UK with this concept, with this idea in his head of what he wanted to do. And he wanted to look for one of our original, if you want, British design and engineering companies to turn his concept into a reality. And that's how the journey started, which for him was about 6 years ago. So there's been a good probably 4 years of R&D in various iterations to get the solution to where it is today. And when I joined 2 years ago, we've advanced again. And you made reference that you've seen our solution at Ras Al Khaimah. That's what we call our WM400. We have since introduced a WM1000, which will process up to 1,000 kilos a day of food and organic waste. And basically, in high-level terms, how does it work? Unlike composting machines, and most people refer it to compost, we're not actually a composting machine in that respect. What we want to do, the idea is we want to retain all the value of that food waste going in, but at the same time reduce the volume. So we have a process which is unique to us, and we're basically using ionization, and we're expediting, if you want, the oxidization in the air inside the drum. It's a fully automated system, so it was designed around health and safety. It was designed to make it what we call a one-button operation, to take the onus away, if you want, from the operator. So they just have to bring their wheelie bin of food, they put it into the cage, what we call the cage, they shut the cage, it's health and safety, they press the button, and the process takes over from there, even down to the offload at the end of what we call our residue. So during that process, in actual fact, we've opened up the cellular structure of that food waste. We've released all the moisture inside, and that evaporates into the atmosphere. So that's reducing the volume. We say between 70 and 80% because it depends on what food waste is going inside. But what we've done is we've been able to retain, one, the very high calorific value of the food waste. We've been able to remove all the pathogens and all the, if you want, the nastier side of that food waste. And we end up with a residue that then can be used for a number of things. Primary goal was to use as a fuel for anaerobic digestion. Now that's becoming more and more popular on a global basis. The only challenge with anaerobic digestion is the quality of the waste that they're receiving. Whereas by using our residue, because of its calorific value, it becomes a very strong fuel supply for the creation of green energy, so that electricity can be created. In some cases, they create heat from it, but we're repurposing the whole food waste. What we're doing as well, we're diverting from landfill. Obviously, landfill is where most people globally send all their waste, whether it's household waste, anything you can think of. And the separation, the segregation of food waste is key to removing from landfill. Apart from the carbon emission that's emitted, the methane that's created is 27 times worse than the carbon emission. So it is a massive challenge, and most countries around the world are trying to avoid going to landfill for food and organic waste. So if we can now take that and we can repurpose it for green energy, in some cases for soil enhancement, and this is why we don't like to really be compared with compost, because we have a very strong product. So it can be mixed with compost, but as a compost on its own, it's probably too strong to go on grass and things like this. And the other thing, we're now in conjunction with, we have a program running with Deakin University, who have been doing some further studies, not only on the emissions or the savings, all the emissions from using Wastemaster by the landfill, the trucks and things. They've also now started to do an investigation in utilising the residue and converting it to a fish food. Now, salmon farms, there's many different aspects of fish farming, and to be able to utilise the residue as a means of fish food is also a great means for repurposing and recycling. So that, I guess, is a little bit of an overview on how the system works. So that the key factors is reducing the volume, retaining all the calorific value, reducing all the pathogens and the bacterias. But the other key thing is as well, we then end up with a product that becomes storable. Unlike, as you can imagine, especially in the region of the Middle East with the high temperatures, to try and even think about storing food waste for more than a day is just not even thought about. Whereas we can store our food, or not our food, our residue for 12, 18 months until you can find a use for it. So hopefully that answers your question on our company and our technology.
That does, William. And I think it's beautiful how you've explained, actually, it's beyond composting and how it retains and reduces. I think now I get a bit more understanding of what the machine does.
Okay, good.
Just to bring it to life for us, in terms of projects, is there any projects where the circularity is complete, like in terms of You mentioned about the high calorific value and how we can actually produce green energy. Is there anyone else who takes the content from you and then produces the green energy, or would your company be also involved in closing the loop? Can I understand a bit more about that?
Sure. We're relatively new to the UAE region. We've only been there for the last probably 14, 15 months, and then we've had a little thing called COVID-19 come along in the way. So that sort of has slowed things down for us earlier on in the year. But if you look at the other regions where we're operating, certainly in the UK, all our residue, part of our business model is that we provide a solution and we service it, we maintain it, but we also, on behalf of the client, we remove the residue and it goes in the UK all to anaerobic digestion because it's very popular in the UK and there's many, many sites up and down the country. So the client, as part of their own CSR program, they know that all their food waste is being repurposed and going back to create green energy, which is great. We're seeing the same thing in Australia. We're seeing that start to happen in the US. In Chile, which is a reasonably new opportunity for us, and we shipped our first system to Chile in February this year, they're actually doing their own investigation because of the location of where it is. It's quite remote. They're actually doing their own investigations into utilizing the residue as a soil enhancement. So for the production companies, whether it's vegetables, fruit, things like this, to put it back into the soil for energy, if you want, back into the ground. So it totally repurposed. And then we have a project in Melbourne, in Australia, which is a new shopping mall. And the shopping mall has been built to such a standard to be totally efficient. It's a sustainable building. It's a building that was refurbished. And what they've done is they've created like a roof garden. Well, it's like a small farm on the roof, and they grow produce. That is then utilized by the food court and the restaurants on the lower level. And the kitchen prep and the after service waste then goes into the wastemaster, which gets repurposed, which goes back upstairs, gets put back into the soil, and it starts the process all over again. So there is your complete recycled, repurposed story all in one. But that is our goal. We are currently investigating various options in the UAE. Obviously, it's very sandy soil. So we've got a couple of options there. They are starting to deploy anaerobic digestion, which is great. But we are looking at soil enhancement. We are looking at fish food as another option for fish farms and how we can repurpose. So a number of different aspects.
So it's just not one industry. There are multiple verticals that this could be applicable to.
Absolutely. And it's a global challenge. It seriously is a global challenge. If you look at locally where you are, Vision 2021 and the drive to remove as much as possible food and organic waste from landfill, but it is a global situation. And again, we have many different, although our target audience originally 3 years ago was hotels and hospitals, because of the nature, they typically provide 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they will have the same challenge. But anybody that's creating food and organic waste, it could be staff accommodation, it could be universities, it could be food production companies, the list goes on. It's so sad at the amount of food waste that is actually created. I think the statistics say that if food waste was a country, it will be the third largest country behind the US and China.
That is lots. And I think that's staggering.
Yes.
That is a sorry state of where we are in. But at the same time, I'm really excited with the solutions that you have in place and just what you mentioned and how you're able to expand into 7 countries and actually work with different verticals and get it out there and use it for multiple purposes, for soil, for fish food, for actually green energy. It's only multiplying from where I see. That's beautiful, William. Thanks for sharing with us. And because you've worked a lot with hospitality, I've seen you in and out of few hotels too. Can I ask, Is there any myth in sustainable hospitality that you want to debunk for us? Because you worked with a lot of us, I'm sure you know a few that we believe in. It's a big myth.
It's interesting. I've been fortunate, I guess. I've worked in the hotel sector myself for a number of years, looking at various aspects. And, the big, what I call the global brands, they all have their corporate social responsibility message. Whatever that strapline is, underneath it all means the same thing. They want to try and repurpose. They want to try and be as sustainable as possible. And I guess that the quick wins, people look at things like LED lighting to reduce energy. People look at, for many years, we've all stayed in hotels. How many times have we seen the message, do you really need to have this towel cleaned every day? What does that mean? That means it's saving water, it's saving energy for the washing machines and things like this. There's even one brand we know, if you're just a one-night stay, typically you open up the soap that's left in the package. That can't be used again. So they're repurposing all that soap, melting it down, turning it back into bars of soap and sending it to developing countries, which is great. The message is all the same. It's how they come at it. And I think that the challenge is that there's some quick wins that can be done. The biggest challenge, I believe, in the hotel sector is what's this going to cost? Because let's park COVID at the moment. We know that's a major challenge for the hotel and hospitality industry. But pre-COVID, where occupancy rates were probably at their highest they've ever been, people were traveling all over the world, things were happening, but still from an operator perspective, they're looking at, any investment they make, every dollar they make an investment, what's the return for me? And so I think from our point of view is it's an education, and everybody for years and years and years, we just throw it in the bin, somebody collects it, and we dig a big hole in the desert or in the sand, and we just bury it. And people have put their head in the sand as well. And for us, it's more an education that there's better ways to do things. It can also be cost effective. Yes, they want to see their ROI. Some people want 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be. But we think we have a solution that can achieve their ROIs. It can make them a more sustainable business. And it's going to be a driver. If they don't take notice now, let me tell you, the governments will start to impose either what we call a gate fee for landfill, and they'll make it a much higher gate fee, or a taxation. It's one and the same. And when it starts affecting someone in the pocket, that's when they'll take notice. But that's the only way they're going to drive towards removing food and organic waste from the landfill.
No, I think you've touched it spot on, William. I think when you talk about ROI and cost, it's a challenge. And it's exactly a great opportunity in terms of if companies are able to show the ROI of their product, then I think every hotel operator and investor and general manager would definitely back their bets on it.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's where you pitch your story on.
Yes.
The ROI that it brings.
Yes.
And talking about numbers and talking about cost, I just want to understand, like in terms of metrics, what does success look like for you? So what's your measurement for success in terms of metrics?
I think that can be answered in a number of ways. Success for us is seeing the diversion of food waste away from landfill. That's the primary success for us. And for every system that we deploy, and let's focus on hotels here. For every system we deploy into a hotel, that's one more, and there's a lot of waste created in these hotels. That's another step towards diverting that from landfill. And we make it quite clear, even in our proposals, that the operator can be very secure in the nature that their food waste is diverted from landfill and is going to a better cause. So for us, the biggest challenge is that education. And, there is a better way to do things. So, we can measure, we have telemetry and things. So if we're talking about measurement of I guarantee you ask any operator out there how much food waste do they have, and they will probably give you a blank look, because they very rarely know what waste they have other than the bills that they're charged by the contractor to take it away. Now, we can tell them quite clearly from day one how much waste they are disposing of, and we can tell them how much we're reducing it by. And we have some instances, in some cases hotels, in some cases hospitals, where we can show them how much waste they have, which really brings it home. And they start to think, do we need to really generate that much food waste in the first place? Now, obviously, different cultures around the world, that can also be a challenge in its own right. Certainly in the UAE region, things like the brunches on a Friday that create a lot of food at the front end, and how much it then ends up in the garbage can. So just helping that and showing clear metrics, clear data of what's being actually destroyed or thrown away, that could also help focus and pinpoint on maybe we shouldn't be creating so much in the first place. So there's a number of different measurements. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. But for us, the key to it is just diverting from the landfill, I think is the real key measurement for us.
That's nice. Thank you for actually educating us on, what really matters and what we should be looking at. I suppose for sustainable enthusiasts on the call, or for corporate responsibility managers, or for director of engineering, it's quite important to know what does measurement look like and what metrics is it that we look at from when we are talking about sustainability. So in here, reducing landfill is a big task, and it's a task of public-private enterprises, I would hope. So is there any example, William, that you can give us of where you worked with the public sector or in partnership with anyone else in trying to achieve the objective?
There are some companies that are setting up these waste-to-energy plants, these anaerobic digestion plants, and to have all that energy that we're creating, if you want, or the calorific value from our residue to be able to go there. So we're starting now to get a lot more buy-in from waste management contractors. They don't see us so much anymore as competition and a threat. They see us as a complementary solution. So to us, that was a big step. It's taken probably a couple of years to get that message across, because of the way they've operated historically. So that certainly is a big thing for us. And then I guess, we just have to work then on, the local governments, the local municipalities starting to close down on, the landfill side. And it's going to happen. It's only a matter of time. It's just some things take a bit longer than others. But we try and get our message out to as many people as possible. And we will just keep banging the drum, as they say.
Fabulous. And I can certainly say you're doing a splendid job about it. I've certainly heard far many things from you. And I think your LinkedIn feed is all the time pumping out very good information in terms of waste. The hashtag "Don't Waste Your Waste" is very popular. I suppose it came from you again. So I think education is key, and you're certainly doing this to spread the awareness and to bring in more partnership into this space.
Yes.
With all the right things going, can I ask, it's not been an easy journey. There are always uphill battles, especially in sustainability. So can I ask you to share with us any failure that you've had, and what did you learn from it?
Wow. There's a question. I guess I look at it every day as a school day, and I think every day you're learning. And the day that you think you know everything, you know nothing. From that's from a personal perspective, but from a business perspective, we've learned things along the way. Our very first model was, I guess it was like the first motor car, and how things have moved on, and what we've seen. I think we're now, just to give you an idea, we're on our 8th iteration of where we've seen things that probably didn't work as well. So we're back to R&D, back to the drawing board. and we've improved and we've improved. And wow, would I call them failures? Not necessarily. I would call them learning experiences.
True.
So, and I think, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, sometimes you have to fail at something to realize what you was doing wrong to make it better. So I'm not so sure whether it's so much a failure as just, well, we tried it, it hasn't worked, we've learned from it and we've improved it. And we're continually improving. We get asked about, are we making bigger systems? Are we making smaller systems? And to be honest, the market is telling us to make even bigger systems because of the amount of food waste that's out there. So that's not really answering your question, I guess, but for me, it's every day we're learning. Yeah, so would I say that we've failed? No, we've done things better, and we're trying to move on to improve that all the time.
And I suppose that's very true when you talk about it being the 8th iteration. That really surprised me. It just means the perseverance and the consistency to just keep going till you have a better version of the previous product, an 8th iteration. That's beautiful for a traditional family company to be doing this again and again and be here now after so many years and actually going up into 10 countries far and wide and setting up across to actually bring something which everyone is going to benefit from and encourage circularity in the economy.
Well, for what it's worth, I relate it to Microsoft. Microsoft 95, when it first came out I think in 1998. But again, we're always getting enhancements in software. Most manufacturers are always enhancing their products. We're not standing still. I guess we're like an R&D company, constantly developing, constantly wanting to improve, and constantly wanting to getting, I guess, more out of our residue at the back end for that repurposing. And that's why we're doing this program with Deakin University, so that they can do further enhancement, or not enhancement, but testing on the residue. And again, as I said, fish food is one of the key areas, but there'll be many others along the way. As we deploy more systems, that means more residue, that means more places to look at. I guess green energy will be the key, but there's many, many other areas to look at.
That's a beautiful story, William. And I think that's a beautiful story to hear how you're constantly on this journey and constantly trying to improve, fix a few bugs, like you say. It's a technology after all. And
Yes.
like what happens, fix a few bugs and then get better at it. And you're able to sell really well to a lot of hotels. Can I ask, do you also sell to city center hotels? How big is the machine? I mean, I've seen it obviously, so I know the machine isn't big, but just for listeners on the call, could you give an approximation of the size of hotels who have your machine or restaurants who actually operate a Waste Master solution?
Sure. We typically say it's a similar size to a car parking bay. So if you can imagine where you park your car, that's about the same footprint as the system. Typically, they can be placed inside, outside. If it's inside, we just expect the ability to get what we call the extract to the outside atmosphere, so that there's no condensation. But we have them placed directly outside back of house normally. We have them down in basements. We have them in all sorts of places. But the great thing, unlike if you want dehydrators or composters or things of this nature, we do not need the water supply. So therefore, we don't need the drainage and all the problems that causes. We just need a power supply. And some of the other challenges as well is with some of the, if you want, alternative systems, because we don't use water, which is very precious in most parts of the world anyway, we don't have the drainage, and it doesn't attract vermin, which is a major. And when we was talking earlier about ROI, a lot of hotels have to put a budget in for vermin control, and a lot of that is derived from the way their food waste is managed, whereas with our system, once it's processed, there's no worry about vermin control. So typically most people are familiar with the size of a parking space. That's about what you need.
That's very true. And I think that's very encouraging for anyone thinking about it as you come back from post COVID and you really want to make enhancements to your social responsibility plan to do better for yourself. I think
Yes.
that's a beautiful suggestion to think about. And for those of you who live closer to United Arab Emirates or visiting the expo, I would say it's going to be at the Australian Pavilion. So if you're there and around, I'm sure we can have a look at the Waste Master. Is that true, William? Do you think
Absolutely, yes. We're now an official partner. And because of obviously the hospitality, they wanted to also show that they were being sustainable in their approach to the waste. And the other thing is as well, they're looking at using biodegradable packaging. What do I mean is plates, it's skewers, it's coffee cups, I call them clamshells when you have something taken away. So we've shown how even processing biodegradable packaging with the food waste, it just totally, it's gone. It just evaporates. It doesn't evaporate, it just goes. It disappears as part of our process. So again, that's very sustainable in that respect. But yeah, we're not quite sure where it's going to be positioned on the pavilion yet because we're looking at the drawings. But again, very simple. It plugs in, and they'll be able to process for 6 months all their visitors, all their lunches, all the hospitality. Not a problem.
Oh, brilliant. Actually, I didn't realize you could put things into the machine beyond food.
Yes. Yeah. As long as it's biodegradable. And we've done numerous tests on that. And it's just, I wouldn't say it's magic, but from what goes in, nothing comes out the other side. It just all disappears.
It sounds like magic to me, William. And that's how I think I've called it too, because the fact that you can put all of these things, which I wouldn't have thought of, because I do composting at home and there are rules to follow in terms of what you put in, what you don't put in. But I suppose because it's an industrial machine, it can do much more than that. And it's order free, it's cloud-based system. So actually, you don't need anyone on the site, and it works magically that you get a cloud-based alert for when there is an issue or a problem. So I think that is magic in my terms.
But that also allows the clients to have access to the data so they can see how much waste that they're processing every day and how much it's being reduced by, and subsequently how much they're diverting from landfill. So for reporting, they can extract that as a report for their CSR, for their management reports.
That's true. So it's less time, less landfill, less resources. I think it ticks many boxes in terms of measurements than one. Brilliant. No, thank you. I think that's been wonderful to hear the story so far. And as you speak about it, I've obviously get the feeling you've been on here for many years, and sustainability now for you is the backbone, and you've been doing it for multiple years. So can I ask you, what resources do you rely on to keep yourself updated in the industry?
I guess it depends if you're talking, I suppose there's two elements there. There's the waste industry in general, and there's the hotel and hospitality industry. So if we talk about from a waste perspective, so we are connected globally with a number of institutes around, as you can imagine, for every industry, there's always some sort of association. So, in the UK, in Australia, we're associated with different entities, and that keeps you abreast of legislation, of various things that are being implemented. We're seeing now in Australia, we're notified as that's broken up into different states, a bit like all the Emirates, I guess. So one of the states has said that they will no longer allow waste to water solutions, which obviously we are not. But, that means that, people are starting to realize that, these, and we learn that from all these different associations and institutes. And that is pretty much a global thing. Plus, as well, believe it or not, there are various institutes and certifications about new buildings, whether it's hotels, whether it's office buildings, and a sustainable building has to have a number of different elements. And now waste management, and particularly food waste management, is part of getting that certification or achieving that certification. And one of our clients in Australia, they've achieved certification because they've implemented the Waste Master system, which repurposes the food waste from a multi-tenanted building with food courts. And it's helped them achieve the overall certification of their building because it's not going to the landfill and there's no trucks on the road and all this good stuff. When it comes to the hotel industry specifically, my colleague Iris, who works with me in the UAE, and myself, we've both come. She's been a lot longer in the hotel industry. I've had working relationships in the hotel industry, and there's you know yourself. It's a bit like I call it a spider's web, and it's a very large industry, but it's very small, and people
I agree with you on that matter.
Yeah, and specifically for us, general managers, chief engineers, food and beverage managers, they're our targets within the stewarding team. They're our targets within particular properties, and people move around, and we have opportunities where they've moved on, they've seen our experience, and then they've called us back in. So we try and keep close to many people. We try and keep close to the brands. Obviously, our ultimate goal is where the global brands are concerned is if we can become a brand standard, very much like they do with their taps and their shower fittings. If we can become a brand standard and we can achieve all those sustainability goals with them, it's more for us, it's a collaboration. Yes, ultimately, we're trying to sell our solution, but we like to do it in a collaborative fashion rather than just being another supplier. And that's typically how we try and keep up with the industry, both waste specific and industry specific.
Sounds like you have your eyes and ears very close to the industry and live and breathe it.
Mm-hmm.
What you've said so far has truly been inspiring, especially as I cover stories which are balancing people, planet, and profit. And you seem to tick all of these boxes for hospitality and beyond. So if listeners were to find you and for your inspiring story, where would you direct us to?
I guess obviously www.greenecotech.com, but that's spelled greenecotec.com. The typical LinkedIn, Instagrams, pretty much most various forms of media, and we're available.
For the listeners out there, in my show notes, I'll also include LinkedIn profile for William Ward and also the Green Tech website that Williams just mentioned. So if anyone was there to reach out or to understand a bit more about the machine and what they do, I think it's the perfect time.
Thank you.
Thank you, William. I think we've covered most of what I wanted to ask you for the meeting. But before I close, I really want to hear from you. Is there anything more that you want to add on to today's show?
I think you opened it almost with our message is, as you said, hashtag don't waste your waste. Don't be scared. Don't be frightened to reach out to us, even if it's just for a conversation. If we can help, obviously we'd love to. If we can't, but we can just share some thoughts, share some ideas. We're here to help as much as we possibly can. Whatever we can do, and that's across all industries, but particularly even in the challenging times at the moment for hotel and hospitality. But we're here. Just let us know what we can do to help. And I really appreciate the opportunity for this interview and to discuss with you what we're doing and what we've been doing for the last, certainly the last couple of years in the market, and the last probably 6 years in R&D. So thank you for that.
Thank you, William. It's been a pleasure. And I think I've learned much more than I actually came today. So it's been a great pleasure for me to learn the various outputs that you produce, and actually it can be used for multiple purposes. I think I came with a very singular view, and I've really expanded my knowledge and what's available. With that, I would like to say thanks to you for actually joining us from the UK. I hope the sun is bright and shining today for you.
Thank you. And stay safe, and hopefully see you soon when I'm next in Dubai.
Will do. Thank you, William. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you would like me to send you the latest show every fortnight, simply sign up for the show newsletter on sustainability stories, and I will send you the latest episode into your inbox, or just head to your favorite platform, find sustainability stories, and subscribe.